Howdy. Hello and welcome back to the Mercedes E-Class channel. Okay, not quite, but we featured so many different versions of the E-Class that it really does feel that way. I think this is the most popular vehicle that we've done, with a number of different generations and even models, depending on which one we've done. The very first we did was the 2003 Mercedes E500. We've also done the E55 AMG from 2002, as well as a number of W124s, including the 95 E320 Convertible, which this is the direct successor to it. And we featured a number of newer ones, the 2019 E450 sedan, which this is technically replacing as a convertible. And then a little while after, we also did the 2019 E53 AMG Coupe. So we featured a number of the current W213 E-Class generation models, but we've done a number of them in the past as well. Now, this vehicle is configured pretty well, about $100,000 Canadian, about $85,000 in the US. We have a lot of options, a lot of packages on here. I think the nicest part of this vehicle, we have the macchiato beige and yacht blue leather interior. I think it looks fantastic. But I want to talk a little bit about how this differs from the previous E450 that we featured and why you might be interested in it. This is a facelift, so they've changed the front end and the rear end. It makes it look a little cute. That's what I want to say. I mean, not that the previous generation was aggressive or anything, but I always found with the E-Class, it differed from the designs of the S and C-Class. The S-Class was, and still is, the flagship luxury sedan for Mercedes-Benz. And I feel that the C-Class always took a lot, if not all of the design traits from the big brother and trickled it down into the more affordable Mercedes. But the E-Class, which sat in the middle, kind of did things a little differently. As we go through all the different generations that we've done, it always had a different look to it. But now this kind of looks a lot like all the other Mercedes out there. So you'd really have to know that this is an E-Class based on the badging. This is a little bit bigger than a C-Class. So I don't know, I mean, it's kind of lost a little bit of its uniqueness, but it's still a very handsome looking vehicle. So the front end's changed, back end's changed, and a little bit on the inside. It's mostly the infotainment system. Before we were using Comand, which was the old version of the Mercedes Infotainment. Now we're using MBUX, the Mercedes-Benz User Experience System. We've featured it on a number of cars already, so even though it kind of looks the same, it's much faster, has better processing power, and has over-the-air updates, which actually this one had last night. But the big mechanical change for 2021 is the updated E450 engine. Before, it was still using a 3-liter turbocharged inline-6, but now it's using the Mercedes EQ Boost mild hybrid system. Produces the same 362 horsepower, 370 pound-feet of torque, but it just has that extra EQ Boost availability. So when you're coming to a stop, it'll be a little bit easier to get the auto stop start to go, and there are some times that you'll be coasting. So you might save a little bit on fuel economy. We'll talk about how the fuel economy was when we take it on our road test, but we didn't feature the E450 in Quebec. When we featured that vehicle before, we were actually in Toronto and used one of the press vehicles from Mercedes Toronto, and I wasn't able to get a fuel economy number for that. So we're not going to be able to compare it to see how it did pound for pound on the pre-facelift non-EQ Boost version. But I think it's a pretty decent amount of power for a convertible like this. There's only two options here now in North America, either the E450 or you go with the E53 AMG, and the performance numbers are pretty close. I mean, even the pricing is kind of close too. To get essentially the same vehicle as an E53, you'd be looking at about another $12,000. So it's going to be up to you if it's a 12% difference in price to go up with the baby AMG. But if you wanted to get the full performance E63, you're going to have to go with either the sedan or the wagon. They don't make it for the convertible anymore. But I do want to take this vehicle on the road. I know we featured a number of them already, but I want to talk about how this one differs, how it performs, and it's kind of nice out too, so it's going to be nice to do it without the roof. I gotta say that today is far from the best day to be filming a car with a convertible roof, because it's kind of overcast. It's actually a little foggy too. It's just kind of crappy weather. The thing is though, if you're spending $100,000 on a car without a roof, you kind of want to drive the car without a roof, and that's exactly what we would be doing regardless. Even though we're in the middle of a heat wave and the weather's kind of crappy and, you know, I'm going to be sweating pretty hard, it's a convertible, and that's the whole point of it. So one of the things we're going to do here though quickly is we do have the little aero mode, I don't know what they really call it, puts up the windscreen on the back. It also, it's actually a mechanical part at the top of the roof here that pushes up. You have like a air vent sort of thing, kind of like what you would have on a sunroof. It deflects the wind a little bit better. So if you do have people in the back, it is supposed to help. For me, it doesn't really make a difference. You know, where I'm seated, I don't see any difference. But the idea is you have that option there should you need it. So we've got that up, assuming that the audio is going to work. Yeah, we got the windows down, as you should have in any convertible. But the last Mercedes convertible that we did was actually the SL550. And I think that was a 2013, so it's been quite a while since I've driven a Mercedes convertible, and I am quite happy. I mean, this facelift looks nice. As I mentioned, you basically get MBUX. I forgot to mention the steering wheel. Also, that is an update. It looks really nice. It's a very circular steering wheel with the Mercedes badge right in the middle there. You've got your touch-sensitive controls beside it. It does take a little getting used to. Are they easier than the BlackBerry-style chiclets that were on the pre-facelift? I don't know. I've gotten used to it. I kind of leave it though. I don't play with it too much. I just kind of have the screen set up and I kind of forget about it, so I don't worry about it too much. But you do have those there, so I like it. I like the look of it. The clock, that's a missing feature. It kind of sucks, but what can you do? I mean, the car only costs $100,000 Canadian, so you shouldn't expect there to be a clock in it. That would just be silly. But how does this compare to some of the other vehicles we've driven, specifically the other E-Classes? Now, when we drove the E53 Coupe 2 years ago, I kind of figured that's the car to get, right? You're buying a coupe, you might as well go for the baby AMG, the only one that they make. They don't make an E63 for the coupes anymore. So you go with the baby AMG, you get the performance. It's a little bit more than this, and you've got the sound. You can have the AMG performance package on it. You've got some information. We've talked about that before. That's the way to go with the coupe because it's a coupe. What else are you going to do with it? I would argue that when you buy the convertible, there's nothing wrong going up to the AMG, but you can get away with the E450 because it's a convertible. It's not really meant for performance. It's just meant to cruise and drive around and enjoy the scenery and enjoy the time and enjoy the fact that you have no roof on. So you don't necessarily need to have the performance on it. Like I said, about $12,000 difference between that and this. You can change some of the options. You don't have to have things like the rims on here or the paint job, which adds some cost to it. So I mean, the way you configure it will be up to you, but I think that this would be more than enough for my daily use. Would it be nice to have a little bit more power? Sure, but I do feel that this is more than adequate. You can get up to speed pretty quickly, no problems. So I've been pretty happy with it. So it depends on what you're looking for, but I feel that it's going to be kind of a mix since they only offer those two engines here in North America, the E450 and the E53 AMG. It's going to kind of be where you're at. But I do like it. I like the drive of it. It's nice and smooth. I can't talk about how quiet it is because I've pretty much never had the roof up. When I picked up the car, the roof was up. I put it down immediately, and it has not been up since. That's the way that you should buy a convertible. What's the point of having it if you're not using it? Overall, though, I mean, the car drives exactly like you would expect a Mercedes to drive. They haven't really changed the mechanics of this from the previous ones that we've driven. Yes, the engine is slightly different with the EQ Boost. One thing that I noticed when you go to start it up, I mean, it starts up instantly. There's no real starting system to it. It's kind of weird, but it works, and that's definitely the future that Mercedes envisions. They're pushing heavily into their EQ Boost, pretty much making all of their vehicles have that option. Some of the bigger vehicles like this, it's pretty much the only way you can go now. So it makes sense. That's kind of the direction they're moving in. Would a regular hybrid have been better? Maybe. It would be kind of nice to save a little bit on fuel. Our fuel economy numbers weren't bad. They also weren't great. And how did our little E450 Cabriolet do on our test loop? Well, we completed it in 7.6 liters per 100 kilometers. It's not bad. Compared to the E53 Coupe that completed it in 8.8 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, we did both of those in eco mode as we always do. I've been driving this around though in Sport Plus mode. You get a little bit more performance out of it. There's no exhaust change really. I mean, it sounds like they're faking it a little bit. But for the most part, you're just getting a little bit better throttle response, and the transmission shifts differently, but in eco mode it was fine. Now, we don't get launch control with this because it's not the AMG version, but I'll give you a little bit of a launch here. 100, not bad at all. This car bug is, that's what I'm saying, like, yeah, obviously you could go up to the E53, that'd be fun, but is it worth it when you have pretty decent performance out of this? 362 horsepower ain't bad at all. The sound is okay. It's not great. So, I mean, maybe you could put a better exhaust on here, but honestly, I mean, again, this vehicle is more just for cruising. The idea is to get into the car, you drop the top, you just cruise around, you have fun, you take it out on the weekend, you at least do the speed limit instead of the people here in Quebec that do like 50 in a 90 zone on the weekends, and you just enjoy it. It's kind of the whole point of it. And that's definitely what I've been doing with this thing. I have enjoyed it. Just wish we had some better weather.